This particular topic comes from professional experience. Nulls and data integrity. Avoid nulls. Nulls are difficult to match at times. They can be problematic if you don't have a standard way of handling them in an application. And you can always use something else in order to, frankly, fill the void. I'll go over that here in a second. So null, as you probably already know, is an absence of a data value, which can be legitimate, by the way. My mom doesn't have a middle name. She can't put one in there. It's not legally. So having the idea of a null value is legit. There's nothing wrong with that. But placing a null in there is a problem. It could be an unknown attribute value. Maybe they just don't know. Known but missing. Then use validation. You're going to see me say validation a lot because, again, I've been through this before. I'm trying to make sure you avoid issues that I've had before. But here's the different ways that we can handle this. Number one, flags. We can use special codes to indicate the absence of a value. Let's say they didn't know what the agent code was. We can use -99 because we can tell you, hey, it's usually greater than a 1. If we have a negative in there, we at least still have an integer that's in there, but we know that there's something up. We have a -99. We know we got to take care of it later. And here's the other part. I can look for -99 in our query, and it comes right up with what items that I need to then go ahead and check for and further follow up on. Okay? There should be some constraints when you're building the table. So we're getting into building tables and SQL and stuff like that here a little bit later, but you can specify when you're building it, it can't be a not, or excuse me, the constraint is going to be a not null, saying, look, you just can't use a null in here. That's another way of doing some type of input validation that, hey, if the table won't let you do it, whoever the operator is putting data in, they won't be allowed to put a null in there. So that's another important thing. A unique constraint can place on a column to ensure that there's no duplicate values in there as well. So again, if we had duplicate nulls in there, this is going to say, hey, wait a minute, I put a unique constraint on that column. Can't do that either, because again, everything's going to be unique. So there's two ways of doing constraints, especially when we get to the MySQL and setting up tables. Let's put it that way. I've had projects where the tables in the database, I'll say database, were already present. And they had nulls throughout them, and the code Nazi that we had wanted to change that, and rightfully so in this case. These guys are usually a prick. But anyway, so in our project, we gave them a value such as NA, not applicable, because then again, it's easier to search for. I did one with a dash, and I really honestly, I hated that, and we hated that project. I would never do that again. So give it a default value, -99 if it happens to be an integer. If it happens to be a string, use NA. There's many different options. In the application, or usually the code Nazi standardization that you have in your application, they're going to tell you, but it's something that you need to talk about when you're doing databases. Okay? Again, my thing about using validation, ways to handle this, use validation, or, and this will upset people, is if next time they go back and they enter in a piece of data for updating customers' information or whatever, we might have a window that pops up and says, hey, please enter this piece of data that we didn't have before that was null. Now we update it and it goes back. It usually pisses off people. But now we don't have a null in that position. We give them the option, say not available or whatever, but now it's not a null. There's somewhere in here that's talking about if you happen to have a table that has a lot of nulls in it, that's a bad design. It's bad. It's really, really bad. For another reason, it can mess with some pre-built functions that are trying to make your life easier in databases and tables. They hate it because of if you leave a cell null. They hate it. So there it is right there. Ton of nulls, bad design. Keep that in mind.